Welcome to Get Organized, planning your success with organizational skills. My name is Janelle Alexander of JAI Professional Development Training. This professional development training session has been approved by the International Association of Administrative Professionals for one recertification point. A link to your certificate will be individually emailed to each participant. Your facilitator and organizer for today should have already emailed you a handout to use while you are watching this presentation. So please have your handout ready and printed available for you to take notes. Our workshop objectives for today, we're going to examine current habits and routines that are not organized. We're going to learn to prioritize your time, schedule, and daily tasks. We're going to determine ways of storing information and supplies. We're going to learn to organize your personal and professional workspace. We're going to learn to resist procrastination and make plans to stay organized in the future. On your handout, there are questions and there are empty spaces for you to enter in answers. Those answers will be on the screen and the answers will be underlined and in red font. So I have been an adult educator and professional development trainer for over 20 years now. I know I look so much younger than that. I agree. I started when I was 5, but thank you for noticing. And I have learned over time that we have three main types of learners and then the combination of types. So some people learn strictly by hearing. If they hear what you say, they understand and they don't need any more reinforcement to understand. Some people have to see. They need to see it on the screen. They have to say, write it down for me so I can, incorporate what you just said into my understanding. And then some people need to do something with their hands, maybe write or physically make something. So I have created or crafted my presentation to be able to appeal to all types of listeners. So I will be reading what's on the screen. It's not for those who need to see, it's for those who need to hear me say something. And then the handout is definitely for those who need to do something. They need to have something physical going on to be able to pay attention and to retain the information. And then I said before that there are some people who are a combination of these. Some people have to hear and see, or they have to see and do. So this should still also appeal to you too. Okay, great. Let's move forward. Every once in a while on the screen, you will see my pet and assistant. His name is Hop Along Hip Hop. And when you see Hop Along Hip Hop, he will be asking you to add some information in the chat to share with the other participants that are participating today. And so we can get some information from each other and learn how to make our organizational skills even better based on some things that our colleagues in IAAP or just people who are on our Zoom call today have done. It's nothing better than getting a recommendation from someone who has tried something and has found whether or not it's worked or not worked. So that's what the purpose of the chat is, to share information with one another. All right, let's get started. So take a look at your handouts. We are now on question number 1. I might not remind you of what questions we're on in the future, so make sure you follow along both on your handout and on the screen. So we're talking about good organizational skills. Of course, we know that when we are unorganized, we feel a little hectic, we get a little anxious, anxiety starts to set in for us. So good organizational skills can prove beneficial in many areas of life, including our personal and our business areas of life. Organization can increase a person's general productivity. It makes you better at getting things done, your project management skills, and even affect your memory and retention of information and skills. These skills are not acquired overnight. It will take work. It will take work to do this because if you're not naturally organized, and we do have some people who are just naturally organized. If you're not naturally organized, you have to consciously break bad habits and consciously institute good habits. But in the end, don't agonize, organize. Removing the clutter. Does your office look like this? I have to say, even though I am a quite organized individual, sometimes I'm doing so many things during my day that things can pile up because I haven't taken the time to organize things. But I do and stop and recognize when it's starting to look disorganized. But one of the hardest parts about getting organized is going through and getting rid of things that cause distractions and take up space. Sometimes we can feel overwhelmed about taking on the task of removing our clutter, and we make excuses as why to not do it and not get it done. So we claim we don't have time or just too much to do it once, but we just have to do it. We like Nike, their old slogan. This, I think, it's still their current slogan. Just do it. Just get it. So we're gonna make a plan on how to get started. One of the things we're gonna put on our plan is creating a cleaning calendar or cleaning time on our calendar. So you would go to your calendar and you would pick out a block of time. And it doesn't have to be a large block, but sometimes we do it in small chunks, right? So make a calendar with time to clean, divide the areas that need to be conquered, make a list of tasks, and decide where items should go beforehand. And Hop Along is asking you to put in the chat, do you have a cleaning time on your calendar? Okay, just know that you do not have to keep everything. And I know some of us look at pieces of paper like this is going to be a very important piece of paper in the future. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But we're living in an age now that we can probably get a copy of anything we need if we did accidentally throw it out or we threw it out on purpose. So over half of our saved documents or items can be thrown away without that negative consequence. The decision to keep everything can drive us to make inappropriate choices about how we organize our spaces, and it contributes to clutter. Ask yourself, am I going to use this in the near future? And you may be saying, Janelle, what is near future? Depending on the document, the near future could be 6 to 12 months, okay? Depending on the document or the item. When was the last time I needed this? This is a really good, important question because we are also talking just a little bit about like personal items. So for instance, if you have a clothing item or several clothing items that you have not worn in 5 years, what is the likelihood you're going to wear it within the next 12 months? Maybe that's something that can go. All right. If I keep this, what is it organized into? Where can I place this? The most common approach to clearing out clutter is the three boxes method. So this method forces a decision to be made about each item you touch as you go through your clutter. You don't get to put it aside or come back later. As soon as you pick up the item, one at a time, of course, and you think about it and you put it in the box where it should go. Do not or try not to release the item until you have a decision that is made. So box one, those are your items you're going to keep, okay? Try not to make that the biggest box. When you're getting boxes, it'll be nice if they were all equal sized or if box one is slightly smaller so you don't keep a lot of items, okay, that you don't need, right? And then, of course, this not does not apply to things that you would take to antique roadshow sometime in the future. If you have those items that are extremely valuable, and you think you're going to be on antique roadshow in the future, just keep it and don't say Janelle tried to force me to throw that away, because I want to see you win big on antique roadshow, and then remember me and write me a check. All right. So this box is for items you would like to keep in your area or maybe even put away for safekeeping. And then this is not to be confused with the items that I might need later. That's not that box, okay? Only keep items that have value and meaning to you. Box number two is items to donate. So that's things that you no longer need, but they're still in good condition and they could be used by someone else, okay? Or you could do a rummage sale or a garage sale. Quite frankly, I am of the mind that when I'm ready to let go of something, I want to just get it out. So I do a lot of donating. If I do a rummage sale or I do a garage sale for myself, I might just say, I decided I'm gonna keep it. So I try to just give things away. But you make that decision for yourself. Box three is the trash box, of course, and that's for things you do not want and they're also not in good enough condition to be given away. Okay? One factor that contributes to our clutter is where we decide to keep it, so our items, or that where we decide to lay it down. So when something is not in its proper place, everything can seem like it's chaotic and disorganized. So while we're thinking about where things need to go, think about the item or items and where it would be best suited. Are you constantly reaching for this item? Then maybe you should keep it closer. Do you only reach for this item once a month? Then maybe you move it away. Okay? So this will require you to refresh your mind and then search over your office for every available space. I know that sometimes I have drawers that are almost empty because I'm keeping it on my desk. And I have to tell myself, Janelle, take your own advice. Stop. Put things into drawers, into areas that when I don't need them on a regular basis, they are further away. But here are the questions to ask yourself. What do I need to put here or what do I need to put there? Where would it be best suited? And will it be in my way or contribute to clutter there? Organization doesn't only refer to our physical items and physical possessions, it can also include organizing our time and activities. Since everything is lined out and identified, regulating our time and energy can seem less overwhelming, can seem less overwhelming. So here is a quote from Stephen Covey. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. When organizing your priorities, it's important to write them all down and make yourself some sort of master list because it helps you remember everything you want to accomplish or complete later. So, this list gives you a visual aid to use when making organizational decisions. So, you make the master list, it helps you remember, and it is a visual aid. You don't have to list the items in any particular order at the beginning. Just list anything that comes to mind. It's almost like your own personal brainstorming session. And then once you have completed the list, and remember the list is a fluid or dynamic document, you can edit it as you go along. As things come to memory, maybe all of a sudden you remember something that was not on your original list that you have to put on there now. But once you've completed it, then you can go back and assign the priority. So you can do codes like 1, 2, 3, or some people use ABC. I personally use 1, 2, 3. Okay. But that's because I like the way the 1, 2, 3 looks. And I won't run out of numbers. I can just keep going. Hopefully I don't get up to 1,000 with things on my list. That just becomes a moment to stop and say something has to go. So the image on the screen is an urgent/important matrix. And as you can see, it's broken up into 4 quadrants. At the upper left, it says urgent and important, at least it's my left. On the upper right, important but not urgent. The bottom left, urgent but not important. And then the bottom right, not urgent and not important. So you really want to try to avoid uh, the items that are not urgent and not important. You give them a lesser priority to get done. But every once in a while, if it's something that still has to be done, every once in a while you'll say, okay, I'm going to schedule some time to get this one particular thing done. Urgent and important, you want to try to avoid that also by creating a calendar to get things done before it gets to the urgent status. But as life shows us sometimes, especially in our jobs, uh, other people put things on our calendar and we have no real ability to change that because we are doing it under the authority of the people that we work for, like our manager. Okay. So that makes sense. That just means that we have to reorganize our calendar. And it happens a lot. Some days you come in and there's absolutely nothing to do and you can work on your actual list. But there's some days when you have a list and you're like, this is what I'm going to do today, and bam, 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 and you come in and it's like the world has turned upside down and anything you had on your list does not get done. Don't fret. Remember, use your list as a guideline. Also use it as something to make sure you do during your down times when you don't remember what to do. Sometimes I will, because I work for myself, I am the CEO of my own company. There are days when I will start off and say, I don't think I have anything much to do. And then I start to write my list and I say, oh, I do have a lot to do. Let me start working on these things. All right. But important, but not urgent, and urgent, but not important are the other 2 quadrants that are on there. Let's keep moving forward. Before I move forward, I want to say that you really want to focus on the important but not urgent. I kind of alluded to that because you want to get things done before they get to the urgent level. And you want to do things that have significance. Now, if it's urgent but not important, the question is, then why is it urgent? If it's not important, how could it also be urgent? And you say, well, Janelle, you put that on the screen. Well, this actual matrix is a common matrix that is shown in business classes. And so, yes, I put it on the screen, but it's not unique to something just me. This is something that we see in business a lot, and many of you have probably seen this before. So we really want to focus on important but not urgent. One way to keep your tasks from becoming too overburdensome, like you look after you've made your list and or you've received a list. Sometimes we get them from our managers. One way to make it a manageable list is to divide it up into activities. So you can sort your tasks by project. You can sort your tasks by what can be done the fastest. And then you can determine what tasks need more time. But one thing you want to do is you want to take them in bite-sized chunks instead of trying to take on the whole task all at once. Because when we take on a larger task all at once, we start to feel that overwhelming feeling again, and then we feel like we can't do any of it because it's just too big. It's amazing how a task can be a 1-sentence task, but that 1 sentence is loaded with multiple smaller tasks. Like cleaning your garage, that seems very easy when you say it in those cleaning your garage. That's 3 sentences. But when you open up that garage door and you look at it and you say, oh no, this is much bigger. Or just to put it into the workspace scenario. Say, for instance, it's a move. The office is moving from one location to another. And the words on the list, office move, well, that entails a lot more than just two words, right? Okay, so break it into smaller tasks. One other thing about breaking things into smaller tasks is if you have, and this is kind of getting into being a project, but if you have a larger task or a project that once you realize it is much bigger than that you thought it was, one thing you can do is start researching how others have done it before. Okay, so don't feel like every new task that you have in front of you has never ever been done before. In some form or another, it has been done before by someone. And even if the locations have changed and the people are different, even if their language is different, it has been done by someone before. One or two things may be tweaked and be slightly new, but look for those similarities in tasks. The 80-20 rule emphasizes the need to focus on what is important to us and to disregard the rest. So, in most cases, and of course, we're generalizing, okay? But in most cases, 20% of the things we have, or 20% of the things we've accumulated, are important to us, while the other 80% is kind of trivial. Same thing for tasks. 20% of our tasks are extremely important, whereas 80% could be done later. Okay? So just think about that 80-20 rule. Focus a majority of your time on that 20%. Your time is valuable. So you should treat it that way. Your schedule can get busy, and sometimes it can seem like there are not enough hours in a day. But when that happens, we just need to take a step back and manage our time effectively. You are important and you are valuable. So your time is valuable too. So when we schedule our time and resources in a way that benefits us and aids us in becoming better organized, there's nothing we can't prioritize or accomplish. Okay, so prioritize. If you can't get everything done, or if you can't do everything, then that's okay. All right, it's normal. Everyone goes through this. Guess what? Oprah Winfrey has the same amount of hours in a day that you do. Yes, she has different amount of resources, but she has the same amount of hours. So just think of that like that. So it seems like a good idea to have several calendars for every area of life. So your personal calendar, your work calendar, maybe even your workout calendar. But if you have multiple calendars, especially if you have children, your children's calendar, if you're a caretaker for your family members, that person's calendar and their appointments. When you have multiple calendars, it can get confusing, okay? And then, of course, you can run the risk of double booking yourself or missing important things. So instead, you can have one calendar where you write all of your personal and your work reminders on them, including your deadline dates, your appointments, your events, and your reminders. Now, personally, I do use an online calendar that lets me have several different type of calendars, and I can select or deselect, so I can see everything, the multiple calendars, all at once. So my work calendar and my personal calendar can be on there all at the same time, or I can deselect the personal things and just look at the work things. So if I want to print out my work calendar, I can print that out. So you can do this. It's based on your preference. If you want to have a physical calendar to do this on, go ahead. Because again, everyone is slightly different. There's no specific one way that we can do things. I have found that having it online, and then if I need to see it physically or touch it physically, I'll print it out. But having it online allows me to, it's really helpful with editing, especially if I have a reoccurring task or reoccurring event that I don't have to keep writing it on a physical calendar over and over again. I can copy and paste and just adjust the dates or time, or I can just set it up so that it shows up, it's reoccurring on its own. Okay. So, setting deadlines. When scheduling our time, deadlines provide a sense of structure and balance for us, right? So, while every person responds to deadlines differently, some people panic at the thought of a deadline. Whereas for me and for others, I'm sure several of you among you, a deadline is more of like like almost like a finish line, or like I look at my deadline first and then I start backing away and say, okay, if this is my deadline, what do I need to do, moments before, even more longer before, or whatever. So, for instance, let's use, for instance, getting to work on time. So, the specific time you need to get to work on time. And then I back away. How long is my commute time? Okay, my commute time is an hour and a half. So I know I'm going to be in my car for an hour, or my train for an hour and a half before I get there on time. Okay, how long does it take me to get dressed? Okay, it takes me an hour to get dressed. So now I'm backed away 2.5 hours from being there on time. Well, do I need to make my lunch and eat breakfast or make anyone else's lunch? That's going to take me another hour, because I'm making my lunch and I might also be making someone else's lunch, or I have to cook something, whatever. So I have backed away 3.5 hours before getting there on time. So that's kind of the same thing. Now that's just for one particular day, but you can do that for a deadline on some type of project. The deadline is March 30th, so I have to back away. What am I doing the day before March 30th? What am I doing several days before, a week before, 2 weeks before? And that's how you can structure your deadline. Put periodic reminders on your deadlines. So if your deadlines are in your calendar, set a date that says, okay, I get a notification a week before that this is coming up so that I remember to take all of the necessary steps. And then also, of course, pad your deadline a little. So if it takes you really just 45 minutes to get to work, don't count on it, especially if you live in a metropolitan city like Chicago, where we have extreme commute times. 45 minutes on a normal day is great, right? But you have to add in, what if there's an accident? What about if it's construction? What about if it's bad weather? And I still want to arrive on time, even if any of those situations come up. So maybe I pad my time an additional 20 or 30 minutes so that I will still arrive on time, and I was able to navigate the unexpected. So I planned for the unexpected. And then if you get there early, use that early time to work on some of your tasks. One way to help you with your organizational skills is to remove or limit your time wasters. Okay? So a time waster is something that can distract you or take you away from the task at hand, sorry. They can occur at home or at work. So removing or limiting some of these wasters can improve your concentration, and it can help you stay focused on what you need to do. Here are some time wasters: excessively checking email, boredom or daydreams, extra time spent looking for things, and taking on extra projects. So practice cutting or limiting one thing that distracts you the most, such as people stopping and talking to you in the hallway. But, I know that I said that, but sometimes I need that because it's a way to build some camaraderie. So I would say, if you feel like you need to build camaraderie by having that small little chat, go ahead and do that small little chat. But you can definitely eliminate excessively checking emails and social media. Literally, social media is a rabbit hole or pit. As soon as you get into it, sometimes you can look up later and it's 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, an hour later, right? So be cognizant of when you are going down that unfortunate rabbit hole. I do a lot of professional development training, and a lot of my clients are government clients. And with my government clients, we have specific time targets, and normally it's a lot of content to cover in those time targets. And so one of the things I have had to do is say, I need you all to hold all questions until the end. And what I will do is I will cover all of our required content, and I probably will answer your question while I'm going through this required content. But at the end, during our break, or at the very end when we have been dismissed, if I have not covered your question, then please come up to me and ask me your question. Okay. And normally when I say that, when I get to the end, I have absolutely no one who still has a question, because we have covered every scenario that we needed to cover by just doing the required material. Okay. So that's just something to keep in mind. By the way, I did forget to say this, but at the beginning, our facilitator is looking in the chat, and our facilitator is doing some responding to the chat too. Thank you so much, facilitator. So, coping with things that are outside of your control. There are many things in life that we cannot control, such as illness, rude or mean people, and especially the weather. But we can learn to cope with them every day and adapt ourselves to them. So you can control how you react to certain circumstances and setbacks. When we are faced with something we realize we cannot change or control, the key to dealing with it is to first accept it. So once you've accepted you cannot control the fact that it rained on your moving day, or that someone almost rear-ended you in traffic, or that one of your coworkers is coming in with a bad attitude at the beginning of the day, has nothing to do with you, but they're shedding that attitude, or they're transmitting, and they're broadcasting that attitude all on you. Um, it's just the ways that we deal with that that help us stay level. Okay. So one of the things, especially for my life, is I just desire peace. I would like a peaceful journey for for the rest of my life. And I try to maintain that peace by keeping a level personality. So no matter if it's good, no matter if it's a good things happening, bad things happening, it does not matter to me, because my life goal is to maintain peace. And it's interesting because as this being my life goal, it seems that people come in and try to test. Like, okay, they don't know me from Adam, but here comes the test to see if Janelle can stay in peace. And so when something happens, I remind myself of my life goal, that I am going to avoid this negativity becoming part of my life, and whatever the circumstance is, I am going to work very hard to minimize that circumstance. Meaning, I don't want this circumstance to follow me all day long. I don't want to be thinking about it into the evening. So let me give you an example, and then we're going to talk about how this applies to being organized. So, say for instance, I'm driving and someone intentionally cuts me off in traffic. And people do that. This is metro. This is I live in Chicago proper, but you will hear me say metropolitan Chicago because we have a lot of suburbs around Chicago, and so in Chicago, we have 2.9 people, and I think with all of our suburban people, it may be up to 6 million. So 2.9 million up to 6 million when we talk about the suburbs. Um, and all people are going between the suburbs and Chicago all the time. And so when something happens, like a person cuts me off, and it angers me, I say something to myself or to the effect that, well, between the two of us, one of us needs to act like we got some sense. And I can't rely on the other person to do it clearly. So I'm going to have to act like I got some sense. And then that's when I make the decision this is not going to escalate. They cut me off. It made me angry. I have real anger, but I'm going to let my default mode kick in. My default mode is to be in peace. Okay. Same thing at work. I come into work and even with my clients and the way that because I have a government contract, they hire several trainers to train at the exact same time on the same material. Sometimes we're in different rooms, sometimes we're as a team training. And we are professional development trainings because we know how to instruct. And they don't just want people who know the technical information, they want people who know how to relay information in a way that if people who we are training retain the information. So as a professional development training, the important part is not the content, it's about how you train. And so if someone comes in, it could be a irate person who's about to be trained or irate trainer. The irate person who's about to be trained was caught in traffic and now they're upset or whatever. Or the trainer comes in and they're having a bad day. And then they, of course, like I said, they want to, that bad attitude is almost like an atmosphere around them. And they want to suck you in like a black hole. And my thing is to say, I noticed that you're having a bad day. I wish that your day is going to be better, and I'm going to keep that in my prayers for you. And then I go ahead and give that person space, okay? Or I try to make it a more pleasant experience for them by keeping things light, all right? But the one thing I don't want to do is mirror their bad attitude. So if their bad attitude is significant where it could escalate, my train of thought is de-escalate this, all right? But also remember if it's something like someone gets sick or there's weather, a situation, we talked about before I said when you're planning something, give yourself enough cushion time. So it is bad weather, okay? Or go with the flow. Sometimes we just can't force our schedules to meet the circumstance. And what we have to do is say, okay, this happened. We're going to look at other alternatives and we're going to talk to the people who it's affecting. Okay, this happened. We did not plan for this to happen, but these are the remedies that we came up with to try to make the situation better. Okay, all right, so it's all about how you react. So, since we can often feel overwhelmed by the amount of work we need to do, one of the easiest ways to manage the things we do is to create a to-do list. And you may be saying the to-do list and the calendar sound a whole lot alike. Let's dive in and discuss it. All right. You can use a daily planner. Some people say that's the same thing as a calendar. But you can put your contact information in there and then update it regularly and reference it every day. Use those notes sections. I do, like I said before, have my online calendar, but when I am in a training session, which I am in, our days can be 11 hours, 12 hours long because we have 4 hours per session, and that right there is 8 hours, an hour and a half for lunch or 2 hours for lunch, and then an hour setup and an hour breakdown. So the days can get very, very long. And those are complete days when I am not sitting in front of my calendar. And it would look very rude sometimes if I'm looking on my phone. So I will have sometimes a paper version and I'll just transfer the information over. But you do what's best for you, okay? Finish what you start. That is extremely important. When we complete a task or project, we get a sense of completion and accomplishment, which can make us feel positive or great about ourselves. But when we drop a project or fail to complete it, it can make us feel down. So completing something that you've taken the effort to start also helps you to become more productive and ensures that the things are done on time. Okay? it can save you time. So finishing what you start, you get that sense of accomplishment, and it's not just a sense, you have actually accomplished something. It gives you the positive feeling, and it can help you save time in the long run. Because if you don't finish what you start, it's still there for you to come back and finish later. So it just condenses the time for you. So by now you're keeping everything on several to-do lists, and you have endless tallies in your head, or you're writing them down. You have your calendars. You have these priorities for your projects, but sometimes you can lose sight of the bigger picture and stray from the main path. So it's essential to keep focused on the important aspects of your to do list, whether it's finishing something on time or making sure you have the right data for a report. But if you come across a task that does not coordinate with your larger goals, then put it aside for now and focus on what you need to do to get your things done. So you have your gathering of your data, you're working on your projects based on your to-do list. One way to check off things on your to-do list faster is, of course, to do those quick tasks immediately. So your quick tasks can be filing paperwork or posting reminders and notices and sending up follow-up emails for essential emails, right? Some emails we get, um, I get a lot of emails because sometimes I do research and you have to sign up for different things. And then I have to ask myself, do I want to get out of this list? But I definitely don't want to spend a lot of interaction with those types of emails when they're more like marketing or soliciting and things like that. Not because I don't value that, it's just because I don't necessarily have the time. So paper and paperless storage. So we are living in a paperless age. Tell that to my office. But we're living in a paperless age where everything is can be done electronically, including tracking our utility bills and receiving notifications. But this is based on your style. Again, everybody is a little different. Some people want that paper, and some people don't want to have anything to do with paper. But if you have been the type of person who has lost their computer files or your computer has gone out and you're like, oh no, what do I do now? Because I didn't have any paper version of that. So some people have learned to try to keep a little bit of both. But again, you have to use your judgment and your discretion on what to keep, what to throw away. Okay, and then how long to keep it. Continuing in that train of thought, find the system that works for you. Is it physical paper? Is it electronic? Which one is the most ease of use for you or ease of access for you? So Hop Along is asking us to put in the chat, name a planning app that you use on your phone and share that with the other participants and how well you like it. All right, whichever storage system you choose, or whether you decide to use both, keep your methods consistent. If you decide to choose one method over the other, be sure to stick with this method for all of your paper files. And keep them in one central location so they are easily accessible. And if you decide to use a combination of these methods, keep your paper files and electronic files consistent with matching names for their paper folders and the folders on your computer. So make sure you put them in a central location, and that's the answer to one of our questions. So every piece of information in storage is connected to some kind of timeline, such as a printed date, times, or schedules. When we store these items and keep them out of sight, we can often forget what they are for and we can possibly miss an important deadlines. So instead, mark your folders, your bins, your files with dates or date ranges. and then highlight on them your deadlines, okay? If you did miss a deadline, refile it into another folder. Now that you've sorted all your files and folders and decided what you need to keep or throw away, the next step is to set up various archives for documents that you need to keep for future use, but you won't necessarily need every day. Establish a reference system that works for you and can be easily sorted through later when you need to find something. If you're keeping physical files, keep them in a folder or bin that is not in your direct work area. Put it away in the back of a drawer or a higher shelf than everything else. We talked about that a little bit in the beginning. If you decide to keep digital files, keep all documents in archived folders and relocate them into another area of your computer. So don't put them on your desktop. That's going to make your desktop cluttered and you're going to waste time looking for things on that desktop if you have everything on there. You should not use your desktop as the catch-all, okay? But however you decide to store your materials, setting up your archives will help you keep track of your files that you need to hang on to while keeping them out of your everyday workspace. So what are our three areas for setting up archives? We got to think about what we need to keep. They are for future use, and you will set up a reference system. Hop along there is asking you to put in the chat, what are the type of documents or items that you archive? Organization in your work area. Organization at work is a great tool to help us increase our productivity and keep our tasks and projects in order. So keep things within your arm's reach. So you have to design your desk, your workspace, uh, so that it meets your everyday needs. And it's not a lot of things that are just sitting there taking up space that are not being touched for weeks and weeks on end. So reorganize your area so that it saves you time. You may have a variety of stacks of papers and projects on your desk, but the key is to knowing what is in them. Keep your desk more organized by only keeping projects that you are currently working on in your work area. Projects that you have finished should be filed away in the appropriate place, while projects that you haven't yet started should not be in the work area until you do start them. So ask yourself these questions. When does this need to be finished? Is it something that can be completed later, and has this already been completed? When you're organizing your different drawers at work, think about how each one functions in your everyday routine. What purpose do your desk drawers serve? How often do you use your filing cabinet drawers? Drawers that are within arm's reach, such as your desk drawers, should house items that you use often. So, review. Does this drawer have purpose? You're going to store everyday items close, and you're going to have some type of organizational system for your filing cabinets. And we talk a lot about this in IAAP. It is one of the focus areas in the certification test. Okay. One way to cut down time, and I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself, but one way to cut down time and to be more productive is to have yourself organized for your day. So let's look at our questions. What tools will you need for this day? What tools will you need for this day? Are there additional supplies needed? And are these needed to complete your project? And that way, if you gather all those things first as you begin to work on tasks, you will spend less time trying to retrieve things later on and getting distracted by people or other circumstances. Procrastination is one of the leading causes of disorganization. So, as we've seen before, we can often make excuses to do it later or find various reasons why something can be put off until later. All right. So start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. So Mark Twain had a saying, eat a live frog every morning and nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day. Well, Mark Twain, that is a wonderful saying. I am definitely not going to eat a live frog. I'm not going to eat anything live unless it's a fruit or vegetable. That's just me. You can do whatever you decide to do. But hop along there. This quote was what inspired me to have hop along. And hop along there is asking you to put in the chat, do you procrastinate? And why do you procrastinate? Is it out of fear? Is it out of confusion? Is it out of lack of direction from our management? Sometimes our managers give us one instruction and then give us a competing instruction later. So, I just hope that you have a great manager that you can work well with. But just keep this in mind. When you are in the workplace, kind of evaluate your manager in your head while they're evaluating you. Is this a person you want to continue to work for because you all work well together? If you're not working well together, this will add to your stress, and that can add to your procrastination, and that will add to you not being as productive. So, counter interview. If you're going to be looking for a new position soon, counter interview the person. And then when you're in the workplace the first 6 months and they say that's your probationary period, well, put them in your own probationary period. Is this someplace I want to continue with based on how they treat me, based on how much time they give me to get my work done? Okay? And that way you know if you want to go forward with this particular place. Remember to remove those distractions because the smallest distraction can make you lose focus. Look around you and get rid of those distractions as soon as possible. And get that information and items you need together. But Hopalong is asking you what distracts you most while working at home or at the office. Is it your children if you're working from home? Maybe you need some in-home childcare or out-of-home childcare, even when you're working from home. But that is based on what you are able to do, and I cannot make that decision for you. I have to admit that what distracts me the most, especially sometimes when I'm sitting down to do an activity where I'm doing some research and writing some papers, one thing that distracts me the most are pop ups from stores that I like. Of course, those cookies are on our computer and they're always trying to entice you by showing you ads of items that you definitely like. And I have found myself clicking on that, especially when I'm doing an activity that I know it needs to get done, I have scheduled it to get done, but I'm feeling some kind of way about getting it done. Either I'm feeling slight anxiety about getting it done, or I'm feeling like I don't want to face this at this particular moment, but I know it needs to get done. And so I may allow myself to click on one or two ads that come up. But then you know what I do? Because I am interested in those ads. I set them aside on my desktop, or I might even email myself the link, and then later on at night I will look at that link because I have to. I make it a point to try to stay as closely within my schedule as possible. And I can't do that if I am looking at ads for gym shoes or jewelry or pretty eyeglasses or whatever else that has popped up on my screen to try to make me distracted from my major task. Give yourself a reward. So only give rewards for your work that you have completed and start with small rewards. And keep a visual reminder of what you accomplished somewhere where you can take a look at it. Okay? Put it in the chat the type of reward you've given yourself after completing a project. Now, I am on a lifelong diet, I think. I'm not really sure. seems like I'm constantly saying I'm on a diet. So I don't give myself food rewards. I might give myself a reward of taking an extra long walk in the park or sitting by the lake. That might be my reward. And I try to sometimes not even give myself rewards where it costs money, because sometimes I'm just interested in saving money for something bigger like a trip. Break up those larger tasks. Can those larger tasks can lead to procrastination? So make them smaller, manageable tasks, and evaluate your progress. Organize your inbox. Many email systems have tools you can use to help sort and organize emails and appointments in order to go through them easier. You can do this by organizing them by subject. You can also organize them in certain messages from individuals. So, say for instance, it's from your manager, you can color code it so that when it comes up, it has a tag next to it that is color coded. You can also set up folders in your email for storing emails that you may need later, but that you don't want to keep in your inbox because it just makes your inbox look too cluttered. So put it in the chat because Hopalon is asking us, uh, does your email system sort messages automatically, and what email system do you use? I mentioned this already in the previous slide that you can sort them by the sender, you can sort them by topics, and then you also can add deadlines or put them under tasks in some email systems. Every email system is not the same. Sometimes you're required by work to use a specific type of email system that may not have all the functionality of other systems. Deal with the emails. Does this require immediate action? If not, then when do you need to act on it? Will you need this information at a later date? And does this email pertain to me or my department? Because sometimes we are CC'd or BCC'd on emails that are tangentially related to us, but not directly related to us. So we might skim those emails. But definitely skim it because you don't want to miss an email that was had something to do with you. Flag and highlight your important items. So important emails should not be forgotten. Anything with an upcoming event, you can come up with different flag categories in some email systems, and you can use keywords. So in the chat, tell us, do you use color-coded flags in your email folder? Avoid the causes of disorganization. When I saw this image the first time, I just wanted to go in there and organize that office. But some people, they thrive in this. It makes me nervous when it looks like this. But oftentimes, becoming organized is mainly about avoiding the things that can cause us to become disorganized, especially after we have already started the process of changing our ways. Remember, when you're keeping things, when was the last time I used this? If I get rid of this, what will happen? And what purpose does it serve? Repetition is the key to learning, so stick with being organized and make it a habit. Hopalong is asking us, how do you keep yourself consistent in your organizational skills? Keep your schedules simple. Make them simple. Make them flexible and keep that sense of structure. In my current position that I'm in with my clients, it's a government client, and I am literally going to different locations all over metropolitan Chicago. A lot of these locations could be an hour and a half away from my home. And sometimes it makes it harder to have a structure because every time you go to a new location, you're getting reacclimated to that location. But that is why it's important for me to sit down and say, okay, how long will it take me to travel? Then based on that, what time do I need to get up? And then when I'm getting up in the morning, sometimes I have to do personal things. So, and other than just making my lunch, and maybe I have to sit down and write out a bill or something because by the time I get home, I'm gonna be too tired to do that. So being able to stick with a structure, or giving the structure flexibility in the sense that, yes, this is the structure, but I can move things around in that structure. Okay. Um, for instance, with lunch, I know my lunch is between this hour and this hour, and I have the flexibility to make my lunch or take my lunch, or well, take, or buy my lunch out. Just knowing that when I buy my lunch out, I'm going to have that sense of urgency to get back to my location again, and I might not feel as relaxed as if I just take a lunch out of my bag and eat it. And now I have more time to myself to decompress and start again for the next half of my day. Remember, your bad habits don't offer any benefits, they just create more work. They don't make us feel any more confident, and they contribute to our procrastination. So try to eliminate those bad habits. Discipline is the key to staying organized. Organization doesn't happen overnight and is not an easy destination to get to. So, as I said before, it takes hard work, commitment, discipline, and a lot of good habits to keep you on the path of being organized. Don't feel overwhelmed. Take it a little bit at a time. Stay within your system. So we've talked about this over the course of our time together. We're about to conclude. But find that right system that works for you, paper, not paper, uh, online, not online, and use the momentum of the excitement you had when you first said, okay, I'm going to get organized. Don't let that momentum drop off after day 3, day 4, day 7, day 14. Keep that momentum up and update your calendar, your schedule, your to-do list. Update those based on what's going on in your real life. Because sometimes when we make these calendars and schedules and to-do lists, we are extremely optimistic, and then real life happens and we need to adjust it to give ourselves enough time to deal with how real life actually works for us. Learn to say no. You cannot take on everything. So say no, no thank you, sorry, but I am already committed to. That's an area, that area is not one of my strengths, or thank you, but I have needed for something else. People, especially the better, you get at being organized and more productive, more and more people want to draw you into their circle to have you help them. And you can say no and say it nicely, and progress forward from there. When we practice these good habits and helpful tips every day, we're making organization a regular thing in our lives and letting it help us build a better future for ourselves. Plan for tomorrow right now, today. So you have a short term and your long term plan, and keep yourself motivated. So, for our wrap up, examine current habits and routines that are not organized. Learn to prioritize your time, your schedule, your daily tasks, and reoccurring tasks. Determine ways of storing information and supplies. Learn to organize your personal and workspace, and learn to resist procrastination. Make your plans to stay organized in the future. And guess what? Even plan your downtime, even plan your vacation time so that you can rejuvenate yourself and be ready for the next set of tasks that come way. I am Janelle Alexander. Feel free to email me your questions, or you all can have a discussion right now with those questions amongst yourself and with your facilitator. I have enjoyed myself being your trainer today, and I look forward to hopefully being your trainer in the future. Have a wonderful and blessed remaining of your day. Thank you.